Are you tired of sifting through endless health advice that promises quick fixes but delivers nothing but frustration? Welcome to the Anti-Macro Podcast, the go-to place for scientifically backed yet digestible health and fitness wisdom without the fads or gimmicks. Whether you're looking to ditch chronic dieting, optimize your hormone and gut health, or simply find balance in your wellness journey, you're in the right place. I'm Coach Diana Lee, your no-nonsense guide to transforming your health and mindset for the better. Each episode, I'll dive into topics ranging from nutrition basics to debunking common myths to cutting-edge functional health insights, sometimes featuring guest experts in the space. Get ready to learn, grow, and take actionable steps toward a healthier and happier you. So grab your favorite beverage, kick back, and let's dive in. Welcome to the Anti-Macro Podcast. I'd love for you to start off by just sharing who you are with my audience and really what brought you to where you are today in your field, what you're passionate about, and who you're helping.
Wow, that leaves the door wide open. Back when I was 3, no, I'm just kidding. Hi, Diana. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate this. And I guess to start with, I have to say that I never started out in my adult years to be a healthy longevity and wellness advocate, an enthusiast, and somebody who practices it and now is sharing it with the world. It's, I think healthy longevity has become kind of the darling of the health and wellness space in social media. And it's catching on because we're kind of late in the game in being able to figure out, well, there's a large population that's headed that way. And it's becoming clear that they don't really die fast. We're sticking around and we're saying, hey, this doesn't make sense. And I don't know, it's kind of a funny thing because it's coming from both ends, but it's all good. It's more information. So I started out as a fairly healthy adult, and I was a very healthy child. My parents raised me. We were vegetarian. I was active. We didn't own a TV. I was outside all the time. I was very strong and robust as a child. I thought everybody was like that. I mean, I just kind of took my health for granted, quite frankly. I didn't mean to, but it just was natural for me. So I got into corporate life. I grew up, went to college, got my degree, got a career, got married, was just really enjoying it and very enthralled with what I was doing in my job. And I just went for it. Sleep deprivation and eating hotel and airplane food because I was traveling everywhere and sleeping in because I was exhausted, not exercising. It was a disaster just sort of starting to form. But when you're younger, it doesn't hit you the same way. I'm sure your audience can relate to that. There's this day when you wake up and thought, oh, I don't think I can do this very much. I need to cut this out. Well, I mean, it was my career, it was the way I made my living, so I could justify it. So of course, it's important. At age 46, I went to my doctor for an annual physical, as one should, and I got a really bad report. My doctor took me into his office and sat me down. So I thought, oh, we're going to have a father-daughter discussion here. This is going to be serious. Close the door. And he just said, I don't know what's going on with you, but you are in a completely different place than you were even a couple of years ago. And you are borderline obese by the definition, just, clinically speaking, which was like, I knew I was a little fluffy, but I knew I wasn't huge, I just thought, well, I felt fine. Had energy and everything. He said, you have high blood pressure, high cholesterol, high triglycerides. You have the signs of early heart disease at 46. And I just told you how healthy and vibrant I had always been. So for me, it was just the most earth-shaking, hitting a wall at full speed. And it was shocking. And so he was like, I'm really concerned. We're going to get this under control. We've got this, but you're going to have to toe the line here. And so he started writing out all the little prescription forms and slid them across the table to me. And I was like, wait a minute, wait. Something in me just closed down. And I know I was panicked, but also there was that little voice in the back of my head that just said, you haven't even given your body a chance. These are the medicines that my elderly father takes. I'm not going to start at age 46. So I pushed back and I said, give me 6 months. Give me 6 months. And my doctor was like, oh, here we go. Somebody bargaining for time, and he probably has heard it before. But he knew me. He knew I was pretty solid and I would show up and do what I said I would do. So I said, give me 6 months. I will come back and we will do this again. And if my numbers aren't better, then I'll take your dumb little prescriptions. He said, all right, let's make the appointment right now. And so off I went. Well, I just had a meltdown and just sat in the car and cried hysterically because not only was I frightened by the results, I realized I had no plan. I promised I would do something and didn't know where to start. And I went back to work and I told my boss about it. And she said, well, Janet, you can work out on the road. There's gyms in the hotels. Just go, And I was like, I don't even know what to do. And she just said, well, I have a trainer. He's pretty good. I like him. I think you would like him. Here's his number. Why don't you give him a call? So I did. And he was very good and popular. So the only time available was 5 a.m. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So I became more of a morning person. I signed up because like I said, I had no plan. So I started in and began training with him 3 days a week, 5 a.m., and just found out that I loved it. He happened to be the kind of trainer who was bodybuilding, fitness, resistance training. So it was not CrossFit or Orange Theory group classes. It was one-on-one, and I was lifting heavy things, picking up, putting them down, pushing, pulling in this little small gym, but it was private, kind of intimate because there were a few other trainers. So it wasn't intimidating, which is kind of a big deal, I think, for women sometimes. And I started it. And so I just pressed, I did the full court press. I just started and found out that I loved it. So I was motivated to keep going and worked my schedule around my travel and stuff. And then 6 months later, I went in and got the blood tests and everything was in the normal range. And I hadn't done anything with my diet, only just resistance training. I'd built a lot of muscle. I'd gotten really strong. I still was a little fluffy, but I was way better. So that's where I found myself at age 47 or so. Still working in corporate life, still really busy. Meanwhile, at the gym, I realized that I had really dodged that bullet. But I was kind of like, well, I'm not going to stop. I really like this. I'm just going to keep going. But then I thought, I need a new goal. You kind of need a gnarly goal that's kind of bigger than life. Like, I'm going to run a marathon. And then you just start training, and then when you get done with the marathon, you're like, what next? I want to do something else. And so, yeah, it was this feeling of this hunger for something bigger. And there were these two ladies who were training nearby. They just started. I'd never seen them before. They were a few years younger than me, and they were ripped. You should have seen them. They were carved and sculpted and ripply muscles, but they looked feminine. They didn't look scary. They looked beautiful, like fitness models. And it was just shocking. I mean, it was stunning. I should say stunning. And then I thought, wow, they must really be strong. And I noticed they're doing the same exercises I was doing, same weights. They weren't any stronger than me. And then I thought, why do they look like that? And I look like this? Because I was still, like I said, a little fluffy. I didn't have, muscles weren't sticking out or anything. And I asked my trainer, why do they look like that? And I look like this. And we're doing the same thing. Well, you can guess the answer. Oh, Janet, those are bodybuilding competitors, and they're going to be on stage in 5 weeks. So they're pushing it right now. They're staying in condition and they're dieting in a very strategic way because they need to lose fat, not muscle. So they need to watch their calories, watch their protein intake and their carb intake. They have to eat enough, otherwise they don't have energy and they lose their muscles, but they have to eat just the right way. I was like, okay, tell me more, because if all that's standing in my way is what I'm eating. And he goes, well, wait, whoa. He goes, it's very hard. Most people quit. You wouldn't like it. And I was like, challenge accepted. I was like, let's have it. At least show it to me. And then I saw it and I'm like, well, this is all really healthy. Chicken, fish, broccoli, asparagus, sweet potatoes, rice, nuts, protein shakes, spinach, and peanut butter. All right, let's do this. And so we started, and a year later, I was on my first bodybuilding stage at age 48.
Wow.
And that was 20 years ago, 21 years ago now. So I'm 69. I'm going to be 70 in less than a year. It's had my birthday. And it has really proven to be an amazing shift in my life. And at the time, it was just to be on stage because it was so gnarly and impressive. And it was an epic moment, to do that and then do it again and again and again. I've gotten up 6 or 7 times and I loved it. And I started to notice, because the last time I competed, I was 62 and there were hardly any women in the 60 and over class. And then I noticed the 70 and over class and I thought, oh, there's only 2 or 3 women. What would it be like in 10 years to do this and compete on that stage? So I started thinking ahead and thought, this is amazing that you can get into your senior years and be so strong and so vibrant and so full of life and energy and capability. And I can live out dreams and things I want to do and accomplish. I don't have to just go, okay, well, time to hang it up. Time for the orthopedic shoes and the early bird special and going on cruises and getting in a little silver sneakers class. It was like, I don't know. You can look at me and think, okay, no, that's not for you, Janet. And so then the healthy longevity space really started to blossom. And I felt that I had a voice, I had something to say. And I wasn't just a doctor talking about scientific findings or a world-renowned fitness, personality. I'm just Janet, and I'm going to be 70 and I feel amazing. And why can't I inspire people in my own generation to the importance of resistance training and the importance of clean eating, the Mediterranean diet or something of that ilk, to be, it's delicious. It's great food and it's working out is fun. And then I started to realize that in my generation, women, when I really thought about it, we were always told cardio and starvation is how you fit in your jeans, young lady. You're getting a little pudgy, skip dinner, skip breakfast, you'll be fine. Drink a lot of water and get a tan. That'll help. We didn't, that's not great either. That'll make you look better. It was all about looks. It was about how you fit in your clothes. It wasn't about how you felt, which was starving and exhausted to toe that line. And I just thought it's time to write a book, to tell my story and start a YouTube channel and start preaching the message, talking on big stages about the importance. And then I was finding in my clientele, I had several clients over the last 20 years who've had, well, actually 15 years. I became a trainer in all this, who had neurodegenerative diseases, Parkinson's, MS, like early stage dementia, but not really manifesting in a big way yet, just an early diagnosis. And I started to notice that they were experiencing a slowdown in the progression of their symptoms. I thought, there's nobody out there. They're talking about the blue zones. They're talking about diet is important and exercise and movement is important. Community is important. That's the blue zones. You guys, is your audience familiar with what the blue zone study is?
I actually don't think so. I've never talked about it on my podcast, so go ahead and share a little bit more about it.
Okay, well, back in around 2006, there was a social science researcher who noticed in traveling around the world that there were little puddles of people in different spots where people lived to be over 100 with no disease and no serious illness. And it was like a concentration, like way above the expectation of regular society. Places like Sardinia, Okinawa, Loma Linda, California. There's another place in Greece, a little island. There's places where everybody who's over 100 is killing it, and they walk every day, of course, and they don't use cars, and they eat things from the ocean and from the land, and they have these groups that they're in groups, so they have friendships and support each other, and so he wrote an article for National Geographic about it, and it kind of went in before the days of going viral. It went viral. Everybody was talking about it, so he wrote a book. It was called The Blue Zones. And so that kind of became the gold standard for the doctors out there who were interested in a different path for their senior patients. It wasn't widely used, but it's become that way. So there was one thing missing, I felt, in that study, because it was the first blush for that kind of thought. So there's no bad on the author. I found that, like with my Parkinson's client, I had trained him for a couple of years. He came in, he'd been early diagnosed. He had a little bit of tremor. And other than that, night terrors, which is, where you kick and punch in your sleep, those were his really only obvious symptoms. So he was taking medication for that. But he wanted to be strong and lift weights, and he let himself get soft. He used to be a police officer, so he was a badass. But he just kind of threw in the towel, and then he missed feeling that way. And the first time he went for his checkup after he'd been training with me for about 7 or 8 months, his doctor said, "You're doing great. Whatever you're doing, just keep it up." He goes, "What I don't understand is why your symptoms aren't getting worse." Because he sees all these Parkinson's patients and they progress at a certain rate. There's a little variability, but they all go downhill. It's a progressive disease that has no cure. Well, this guy was not getting worse. And then he went back a year later, didn't have to up his meds. And I just thought, And then my lady with MS, she was hiking all over the pyramids and hiking the trails in South Africa. She's a big world traveler, and she's in her mid-50s and had MS. She'd had it for 20 years. Wasn't getting worse. And I just thought, there's something to this. So I started digging into the studies and going online and searching. Come to find out that since COVID, they've been studying it for a while, but starting in about 2021, it had been long enough where there was a longevity. If there was a longevity study, it had gone on long enough and the sample size was big enough to be rigorous and trustworthy in its results. It wasn't just a little sample. And there were a dozen studies that were saying resistance training slows neurodegenerative diseases. And here's why. And they explained what was going on physiologically. And I just ate it up. So that's been my thing in the last probably 3 or 4 years of really talking about the thing that women are afraid of, especially. Guys are usually like, yeah, I want to go to the gym. My Parkinson's guy's like, he was all like into the testosterone male ego thing of, look how amazing. My wife says I look wonderful. But women are kind of like, oh, okay, well, I have some little pink dumbbells and I'll do that. But I'd rather just, run, which is great, or do cardio. I mean, it's good for your heart. It's good for your circulation and your lungs, but it really doesn't build muscle substantially. In fact, oftentimes, if you only do cardio, you become catabolic and you burn muscle off as we get older in that frailty bit. Have you ever seen older people who run, who don't lift weights? They really stand out. My ladies that run lift weights, and so they maintain their muscle much better, even though they don't look all big and bulky, of course.
Yeah, I mean, you shared a lot of really great stuff, but I think, one of kind of the important themes of this, right, is there's been this overarching message that has basically prevented women from getting into resistance training from your generation. And I think what we've seen over time is the messaging has absolutely shifted,
Yeah.
but it's not quite there yet because the same kind of arguments that you're seeing from women of I don't want to get bulky or I want to look feminine, I'm still seeing the same thing with women that I'm training and that I'm working with is this fear around being too muscular. Even in my own journey, I had to overcome that. When I was younger, I was a gymnast growing up. So I've had biceps since I was 11, but that wasn't seen as a positive thing. I actually spent a lot of time being very shameful about my arms and the size of them. And it wasn't a source of pride until I got into the fitness industry and people were like, oh, I want arms like you. Like all of a sudden it became this thing like, I want that. But a lot of women, I have a history of working in CrossFit. I had a lot of women who came in and they would be like, well, I don't want to look like the CrossFit competitors. I'm like, good news, you won't. Like,
don't worry.
That's like a whole other ballgame. Like, trust me, you have to walk into a CrossFit class and walk out looking like a CrossFit Games competitor. Like, you're good.
Yeah.
How about start resistance training? And I think the messaging is changing, but sometimes the focus is still very much on aesthetics. What is going to make me look the best? What is going to make my body fit the current trends of today? And I think a lot of people are thinking on the health side of things, right? We know resistance training is good for us. We know we should probably do it. I think more and more women as they enter perimenopause and menopause are becoming more aware that like, okay, I need to hedge my risks with osteoporosis and whatnot. But I don't think there's enough conversation going around about the neural impacts that resistance training has. And that is something that I think is really, really fascinating is how can we utilize this to basically further that motivation for women, men too, but for women especially, like why is resistance training so damn important?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's very telling. You're finding what I'm finding. Isn't that interesting? It's fun when trainers talk. It's like, are you seeing this? I'm seeing that. What are you?
Yeah, we're all seeing it.
Yeah. It's funny. Well, and I've had women who say, well, I mean, I had just come off a show, so I was really lean. Like right now, I'm not in competitive mode, so I'm just eating like a normal person. I mean, I keep it reined in, but I let myself gain 10 or 12 pounds and don't worry about it because it comes off. My body's trained. But I do notice women saying, well, Janet, it's great what you did. I mean, my gosh, you look amazing. I have before and after pictures. It's like, you don't even look like the same person. But I don't want to look like you. I just want to look kind of like a little more lean. I want to lose my tummy. I want to lose this, the bingo wings, the bra fat, I just want to get rid of that and look nice in a tank top. And I said, well, first of all, fat doesn't tone, muscle tones. So you're going to have to get less fat and more muscle to have that tone, but it's not going to make you huge. You don't have the right mix of testosterone and estrogen in your body. You have the right mix for being a beautiful woman. And that's not going to change unless you decide to pursue that route. It's kind of like I saw this really funny meme. You're afraid to drive your car because if you drive your car, you might end up looking like a NASCAR driver. Like it's like, no, you're not going to, it doesn't happen that way. That's a very specific route. And so we could maybe, if you want to talk a little bit about a little more deep dive into the neurology and the inner workings of why resistance training is so important. You touched on osteoporosis. That's a really important one because a lot of us, especially after menopause, at some point will get the diagnosis of having osteopenia, which is a preliminary kind of like being pre-diabetic is a harbinger of what's to come if you don't change. And so we, start slamming the calcium, and you realize it's not doing any good. Well, why is that? What's going on? And when it turns out that part of the puzzle of maintaining bone mass is muscles pull on the bones when you use your muscles. So using your muscles to do hard things, not everyday things, but things that stand out so that your body goes, what is she doing? Uh-oh, we're going to have to make some adjustments to accommodate. Your body follows your cues. If you offer it as an experience, it'll rise to meet it, but it will make changes to be able to continue to meet it. And if you use your muscles in a very proactive way, then they will build, and then your bones will feel that, and it will tell them to stay calcified. But then, of course, nutrition comes in as well. And when you build muscle, you have to eat more protein. You have to pay attention to getting all the trace minerals and vitamins in vegetables and fruits and all the other, the different families of things that we need for micronutrients. And all of that helps. So calcium requires vitamin D and magnesium and potassium to work, but it has to have a reason to be there, and that's building muscle. And then the other thing about muscle is that it is a glucose dump. So when you're eating sugar, whether it's refined or slow carbs, the first place it looks to go is to store in the muscles so that there's a ready supply. It's not an infinite supply, but enough glucose to help you climb up a tree and get away from a saber-toothed tiger. It gives you about 20 minutes of burst. So in order for you to have that, it's an evolutionary save your life thing, that we're here because we have that. So there's a glucose dump mechanism in your muscles that gives you a little grace so that you have less likelihood of getting diabetes, getting pre-diabetic. Doesn't mean that you can just, have a Dairy Queen blizzard tomorrow and every day, but you have a little grace. But then the other thing that happens, especially when you use your leg muscles, so your thigh muscles, your quads, and the back of your legs, your hamstrings, and your glutes are your biggest muscles in your body. So when they get activated, everybody pays attention because they're like your big engines. And when they get activated, one of the things that happens is they release this, it's a protein, it's called brain-derived neurotrophic factor. And what it does is it shoots out into your body, and it swims around and finds where there needs to be repair. Where you have a strain or you have some old cells that need to be rejuvenated all over your body. And it doesn't stop here. It goes up here. And your brain is all nerve cells. So there's the opportunity right there to go in, repair connections, build new connections around the ones that are dead, making sure that you have new neurons growing. So your brain becomes this active organism that isn't just slowly dying and shrinking and getting all congested with amyloid plaque that builds up. It's kind of like a sticky, gummy substance that impedes the impulses from getting through, and then it just dies, and then it doesn't get used. And that's early brain disease. Mm-hmm. So that brain-derived neurotrophic factor is naturally produced in the body. You produce enough of it if you use your leg muscles. So that's why climbing and squatting and lunging and just being able to really dig into those muscles, that's why you feel so good if you ever do that. And after you're done, you just feel exhilarated. It's obviously endorphins and dopamine and some of those feel-good chemicals, but brain-derived neurotrophic factor comes in and just cleans house on everything. It's like your little housekeeper that just comes in and tidies everything up. And that is one of the most powerful ways to guard your brain from degrading as you get older. And it makes sense, we know in our media and stuff, how seniors should do crossword puzzles and Sudoku and, things to challenge your cognition. Okay, that's great. But there's this thing of whenever you do something hard, something you learn, like you learn a brand new skill or a new, like you learn something you've never learned before. It's why travel is so important. So beyond just the little sitting down and doing the puzzles, anything you can do to be able to challenge your cognition, learn something, do something a little scary, do something a little risky. I mean, it could be anything. And that, for me, I mean, I realized earlier this year when I started my YouTube channel, I was thinking, I'm doing what I'm telling people to do, because it was hard. And there were times where I don't think I can do this. I don't understand how to solve this problem. And I would have to dig and talk to people and listen to things. And then I would figure it out. And then I would just feel so excited. And I realized, oh, this was good for my brain too. It was good because I learned a new skill, and it was hard. It was hard. There's nothing wrong with doing something hard. So yeah, we seek comfort, human nature. So yeah.
Yeah, we do seek comfort. And I think also seeking comfort in a lot of ways is why people avoid exercise, working out, resistance training. There's so many barriers, whether they are legitimate barriers or whether they're kind of like mentally made up barriers, right?
Yeah.
The fear of walking into a gym and having no idea what to do, the fear of investing in a coach or a trainer, the fear of getting hurt. I think that is actually a huge one that at some point we should absolutely touch upon, especially with this, with the older generations. But going back to kind of that learning something new, you mentioned how there's, triggering muscles, and especially our leg muscles can help actually with brain function, but not to mention how many times do we learn something new in the gym?
Yeah.
So you're killing two birds with one stone here. We're learning balance, we're learning agility, we're learning how to move our bodies, that mind muscle connection we're building. And a lot of times we're learning what we're capable of. And so sometimes walking into the gym can actually also be brain power in that sense, because you can learn new things in the gym as well as resistance train. And now we're really building very, very strong brains.
Yes, that's a really good point. It is intimidating, and it can be an opportunity to learn. And it's one of those things where we do it all the when little kids, they're constantly throwing themselves into dangerous things. I mean, we have to keep them from hurting themselves because they're so experimental. But then when we get older, we sort of lose that zest, that joy, because it hasn't been challenged. We have a job, there's a lockstep things that you do, and their family, raise your family, whatever is going on, running your life, and then you retire. And then you're like, wow, I can just sit back now. I've earned it. And I tell people, go on a cruise, sit on your butt for a couple of weeks and stare at the sky. Fine. But when you're done, you better have a plan, because you have the last trimester of your life ahead of you. And what do you want that to look like? How do you want to experience that? What are you doing right now that you love doing? You might have to give it up. Afraid of giving it up? Then train for it. Whatever it is, it could be anything. Picking up your grandkids and not throwing your back out. How's that? Or if you like travel, you said something about balance and stability. You have to be able to walk on, non-ADA compliant stairways and cobblestone streets and lifting luggage and going on weird dark walkways. And it's a lot. It's a physical feat to travel nowadays, to be able to do all those things. And I've realized it as I've gotten older. Like a couple of years ago, went on a vacation where we did a lot of walking, and I'm strong and fit, but I wasn't doing that much cardio. And bodybuilders do cardio. We use it as a tool, not as a regular activity. It's a tool to help you burn those last bit of calories at the end. So if you're always doing a lot of cardio and then you're trying to lean out for a bodybuilding show, that's not something that you have in the tank that you can throw in to give your body a little extra push. That's one part that's maybe not great. And not all bodybuilders would agree with this, but I tended to be very catabolic. I burned muscle very easily because I'm kind of a mesomorph. So once I got lean, I had to be careful. not to do too much cardio. So I've always kind of shunned it as a habit. Well, I had trouble on that. I had to sit and rest. I thought, no, I am not going to. I got scared. I was like, this is what it's like to all of a sudden kind of be out of gas. I got to sit and rest. I mean, my husband's 7 years younger than me, and I have to keep up. So I had to get with the program. So the next time when we were going to go on vacation, I really pushed the cardio. I got a weighted vest and started doing the Stairmaster with it. And the next time we went on vacation, I was fine, so I could fix it. But that was kind of like a little, hey, Janet, you shouldn't let that go. So I'm still learning too. I mean, I still have to work on myself. I can talk about it all day, but I need to make sure I also do it.
And it's funny you bring that up because I've gotten questions from clients and they're like, so do I have to do cardio? And I prefer lifting myself. I
Yeah.
used to be a runner. I used to be a CrossFitter. I'm in my lifting era and I really enjoy lifting, but I still acknowledge like, hey, we need some kind of cardio capacity in there.
Yeah.
There are tons of benefits to cardio that we should not totally ignore. Of course, we can tailor our workouts to our goals and whatnot. But I think what a lot of people need to realize, you're in a sport where you're in a very specific sport, right? Like you're doing very specific things to get on stage and to look a certain way. And a lot of times we talk about the most quote unquote optimal way of training for XYZ goal. But
Right.
really, majority of the population needs an optimal way to train for life, right?
Yes.
What is going to make you strong? What is going to make you have longevity? What is going to make sure that like your bones are in good condition as you age, that your brain's in good condition as you age, and that way you can also live a fulfilled life, as you mentioned, with travel and be able to go out and do things. It's not so much just about looking good. While we want that, that's totally fine. You're allowed to want that. We should also focus on what's the optimal way to train for life itself and our overall health. And as you mentioned, longevity.
Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. It's like, yeah, people don't have to be a bodybuilder or a gymnast to have a healthy, fulfilling life. They might not even enjoy doing those things, but maybe they enjoy being able to play 18 holes of golf or win at their pickleball court and get the trophy and be able to hike. I live in Arizona. There's a lot of inner city trails, and hiking is a big deal here. If you love doing those things, then you've got to train so that those things can be sustained as long as possible. Whatever it is you enjoy, it's to give you a fulfilling life. So you're not all of a sudden relegated to the sidelines because you aren't strong enough or you're afraid you're going to get hurt. And I'm telling you, any kind of resistance training that you can do for shoulders and upper body for women, huge for not pulling a shoulder or their back going out, because women tend to be, genetically speaking, a little stronger on the bottom than they are on the top. I trained a lady a couple of years ago who wanted to climb Mount Kilimanjaro for her 60th birthday. Now, she was already a casual hiker and she was in decent shape. She wasn't overweight and she loved hiking. But we had to do a lot of work to get her ready to shoulder a pack, hike in high altitude, be able to go that long haul and not give up before the end. And she did it, but it took us about 6 or 8 months to prepare. And most of what I did with her was upper body and core so that she could. So there's that deficit that you find sometimes with women needing to have a strong upper body so that they can do the things that they love to do. And they tend to be sometimes a little less muscle up here. Whereas legs tend to be a little more well developed because we use them so much just in getting through life. But I don't know. It seems like logical that you should decide what it is that you love doing, train for that, and train so that you're doing more than that. A good analogy would be if you watch baseball, you see the Major League Baseball players warming up before they go up to the plate, and they swing the bat around to get their shoulders, really warm. And the bat has like a 10-pound weight on the end of it. So they swing it around and they swing it and they kind of like get used to that because that's more weight than they have to swing when they go up to bat. take the weight off, go up to the bat, and then they can slam it because they didn't just practice swinging a regular bat. So, I mean, bodybuilding is like that. Resistance training is like that. It puts extra emphasis and effort into the movements that you do every day, picking something up off the ground, being able to get up underneath something and lift it, moving furniture. You move your furniture around your living room a couple times and oh, I feel some things that haven't been worked in a while. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff you would do in resistance training.
Yeah. And let's go back to the cognitive health piece.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think a lot of people have an idea of how to train for bodies, physical strength, and whatnot. But if somebody is looking to gain the benefits of resistance training for Alzheimer's prevention or just generally neurodegenerative disease prevention,
Right.
what kind of things should we be focusing on? Are there specific things that people should be doing in this area, or is it a lot of the basics that we already know?
I think that the first thing is pick your exercise routine and stay really consistent. Consistency is king. Make sure that you are doing it on a regular basis, at least 2 times a week. Whatever else you do, great, but 2 times a week, focus solely on just resistance training. One of the other areas to focus on is doing a lot of balance. So do things standing on one foot or the other, or one arm and the other, and do things where you're standing on an uneven surface purposely, or where you're having or a movable surface like a cushion where you're trying to do things. Incorporate that into what you do. I tell everyone, when you're making your coffee or brushing your teeth, stand on one foot and then stand on the other foot. Get used to that thing of keeping your balance. But the strongest and most aggressive way to be able to prevent or improve your chances on preventing neurodegenerative disease is the large leg muscles. That's where that neurotrophic factor really comes from. And that comes from stressing those muscles by doing hard, heavy things. And come in slow. Do body weight at the beginning. If you're not strong enough, just do body weight. Start there. And then it'll get boring. And the reason it's boring is because it's too easy. And that's when you know to add some weights. And I would highly recommend, for those of you who are going, okay, I'm getting this, but I can't afford a trainer. I don't want all of that rigmarole. I would say hire someone for a few sessions so that they can teach you how to use the machines properly. They'll be your best friend. They'll check on you even when you're not paying them because you've connected. And have them show you how to use the machine so that you feel confident walking up to it. You know what it does. You know how to load it. You know how to move through it. And you know how to use it so you don't get hurt. And use a variety of things. Use free weights, bands, cables, and strength machines. Those are all good. But it's the large leg muscles, stability, and consistency. Don't stop.
Love that. There's so many ways to work out your body, and there's so many forms of resistance training. And there's this constant message of lift heavy. Like, I'll admit I'm part of this messaging, right? Like, lift heavy, lift heavy, lift heavy. And I love inspiring people to lift heavier.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of women wondering, like, do I really have to lift heavy, quote unquote, right?
Yeah.
In order for me to get these benefits. So when it comes to benefits from a cognitive function perspective, but also maybe even some of the additional benefits that we've had, building muscle and whatnot, what are your thoughts around the conversation of lift heavy? What might that look like for women? Can a woman be, let's say, right now it's really popular. Can a woman be a Pilates princess while still achieving some of these benefits? Or is she going to miss out if she is not in a gym working with, weights or machines?
Quite a few of my female clients do other things besides lifting. Pilates is popular, yoga, or pickleball. Those are the 3 most prominent things right now. I would say this, that lifting heavy means heavy for you. So it's not going to be what Mr. Jim Bro next to you with all the bulging muscles is going to do. But he started somewhere. He started when he was maybe a kid or a teenager or in his young 20s or whatever, and was like, so, I mean, everybody starts somewhere. So if you are worried about what heavy means, I would say just start light. If you can do 15 reps, go a little heavier, go up by 2 to 5 pound increments. And when you get to the point where 8 to 10 is pretty hard, and you want to get to the point where if you do an exercise and the very last 3 to 4 reps are like, oh, I kind of want to stop. Oh, but I can do it. Then that's how much you want to do, and stay there and go with that until you can get to 15, and it's not really, it doesn't feel hard anymore. It's noticeable, but you're like, I could probably do 5 more. Well, when you can probably do 5 more, then you need to go up in weight. And that's kind of like an intuitive thing. And that's what trainers will do for you when you're training with them. If they're good, they're going to start with where you are and get you confident in your body in doing things and using up the space, and then start to slowly escalate and then change so that you're doing different things for each body part. So that's the beauty of working with an expert. But you can be intuitive about it and just know that heavy means heavy for you. And you are completely different than little, Instagram influencer over here that's, in her little tiny Lululemons. Okay, she's on a different path. And God bless her, she's starting now. I didn't start till I was 46, so I'm kind of jealous. But start, the best time to start is 20 years ago, but the second best time is right now.
Yeah.
So
And I
yeah.
like what you even said like a little while back, which was if it starts to get boring,
Yeah.
a good cue that you can probably make it harder
Mhm.
or, in these cases heavier.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, like you and I, we love this shit, right? Like we
Sure,
love
sure. We
we
do.
love tracking
Yeah.
our weights. We love seeing our progress. And I know not everybody loves to nerd out on it. They don't like to keep this. So I love that you're speaking more to that intuitive side of things. Feel it out.
Yeah.
One of my favorite cues, especially at, the gym that I coach at, is if you're, as far as resting between sets, I'll say, hey, like if your heart rate goes up during your set, wait until your heart rate comes down for your next set. Because a lot of people
That's
don't like
good.
timing rests.
That's
And then
good.
I'll say, if you don't notice your heart rate going up during your set, you can
Mhm.
probably go harder or you can probably go heavier, right? We can adjust something to increase the challenge. And those intuitive cues help people a lot more, especially when they're not
Mhm.
so focused on like PRing or,
Yeah.
checking their weights week over week. And it's just like, okay, how does this feel for me? And how
Right.
can I now push my body more?
Oh, I like that one that you mentioned about the cardio, because I follow that as well, where I even notice in my own workouts when I get close to the end, I'm like, I start to get a little breathless. And that feels good. And there is some cardio aspect to lifting. And cardio will support you to be able to go heavier because you'll have more oxygen capacity. The thing that's great about resistance training is you are allowed to rest between sets. And it is actually important that you do. And CrossFit is go until you die.
And control.
You can rest when you're dead. Well, you will be, So yeah, it's a different approach, and that's why I think resistance training is a sustainable way to go as we get older, because when you're going fast, it's harder to notice when your form is slipping and you're tired. When you're tired and you're going fast, that's a recipe for injury. And there's a lot of good CrossFit instructors out there who watch for that, and they don't have such a huge class they can't keep an eye on you. But with resistance training, you definitely start tapping into your body, and pretty soon you're having a conversation with your body where you're like, whoa, that got me a little winded, but it felt kind of good. Okay, well, I'm going to rest for a minute or two. I'm going to do it again. And that's a kind of a good feeling. I have to tell you this story. I have this lady. She's tiny. She's a little petite. She's 73. And she's one of the ones that wants to look nice in a tank top. And she's just a cutie. She's so fun. But she's like, I don't want to get big muscles.
Yeah.
But she wanted tighter legs and hips to fit in her little jeans. And so we were leading up to bar squatting. It's a big step. for a 73-year-old woman. But there's a way that you lead up to it and get ready. You do all the little exercises around it to make sure the core is strong enough, make sure someone can shoulder something, and don't lose their balance. There's a bunch of stuff. So the first day came and she got the bar and I taught her how to rest it on her muscles, not on her neck. We got all that out of the way. And so then she finally stood up and she was feeling it out. And it's such an exciting thing as someone who loves fitness to watch this happen. So she squatted and I had a little bench for her to kind of, like a little safety net for her. So she knew she was going deep enough. And if she really gave out, she would just be safe. And I was spotting her. And so she did, 10 or 12. And then she racked the bar and she said, "That felt great." And I was like, "Oh no, I've created a monster." But it was so funny to see that fire come out of a 73-year-old woman's eyes who had never felt like that before, or it had been decades, since she was in school and maybe competing in sports or something. I never will forget that because that's the essence of it right there. When a woman connects with her body in its capability, there is no stopping her confidence, her self-efficacy, her feeling of empowerment. It's like nothing else. It's it's better than it's better than being the smartest person in the room. There's something else that is going on there that is so exciting to see. And she's addicted now.
It is. It is such a good feeling to watch women lift heavier than they realize they can,
Yes.
like get excited about it, which I love.
It
But
surprised her.
it surprises a lot of them. Like, I will watch women train and I'll kind of look at them and go, okay, like how hard was that set? And they'll look at me like, I mean, it was hard. I'm like, you can go heavier. Like it
Yeah.
looks, you're fine. Let's
Mhm.
try to push a little bit more. And they'll do it. And they're like, okay, I could do that. I didn't realize I could do that. And it's great to watch those pieces click in place and for
Right.
them to realize like, hey, I can actually push myself a little harder than
Yeah.
I. But I know what stops a lot of women, especially women who are in their 40 and up range, is the fear of getting hurt, especially if they didn't grow up training in some
Right.
capacity or they weren't athletic before.
Right.
And, a lot of that risk of injury is associated with, again, quote unquote, lifting heavy. So they're afraid to walk into the gym and push themselves. They're afraid
Mhm.
to resistance train in that fashion. So, what do you have to say for these women who might be more afraid to push their bodies? What is your advice in that range?
I think that it's very real. And I think that it is, I had it too in the beginning. I can remember feeling, especially, I felt safe because I had a really good trainer who was careful to correct my form. You want to do the exercise light first and kind of wake up your body so that it knows what you're going to do. You're giving it a little heads up. Hey guys, we're going to be doing a chest press here. You want to be able to stretch and push. And how does that feel? Do you got a crick in your shoulder? What's going on? And so you kind of go into your body, but then you find out, okay, I can do the motion. So if the motion and lightweight feels okay, then just gradually escalate. You don't want to just all of a sudden start chest pressing 100 pounds, and that would not be good. Your body is going to tell you the truth. And the pain of effort is not the same as pain of injury. Yes, you shouldn't overdo it, but that's why I do have a very strong belief in at least starting out with a trainer and to pick a good trainer. Have you ever talked to your audience about how to pick a good trainer? How do you?
That would make a whole good podcast on its own. I've
Yeah,
definitely talked about the
yeah,
pitfalls sometimes.
yeah. Because on my YouTube channel, they're like, "Okay, I get it, Janet. I get it. But I don't know how to. I mean, they don't live here, so I only train people one on one in person. So I have this whole protocol of go to the gym where you're going to train at the time of day you're going to train and get on the treadmill. They're usually facing the floor and just walk slow. Don't put any effort into it. You are there to do reconnaissance. And you watch the trainers who were there on duty at that time and find the one who's staring at their phone and scrolling while their client is doing walking lunges incorrectly. Find the one who is talking to their friends instead of focusing. Find the one who is crouched on the floor making eye contact with their client and talking softly. Okay, move your shoulder. Okay, you're going to flat back, flat back. And they're doing little touch cues, just gentle touches. You can spot that trainer a mile away because there is this communication going on. That's your trainer. That is somebody who's going to protect you. That is somebody who cares and is passionate about their client having a great experience. That's the person. Even if you only get 1, 3, 5 sessions or a month, they will teach you everything on how to work with the gym you're in, and then write a program for you. So you have a program. So do that. And then when it gets too easy, you can hire them for one session. I need to up my protocol here. And they'll up it for you. So you have a little bit of oversight without having to spend as much money if that's an issue, or without having the oversight because you're kind of more independent and you kind of want to be free flowing. But the trainer will keep you consistent because they're waiting for you. You've already paid for the session, and they will keep you safe, at least until you get your confidence and you catch yourself going in on the weekend and doing the exercises again, and you're okay. And you think, I could probably do this on my own,
Yeah.
But what I needed help with was I was so intimidated by those big guys, huge, and they're there. You just can't, what you find out about them is they're really nice and they're impressed that you're there, especially when you're older. They're like, look at you. They'll help you. They'll spot you. They will spot you if you want to try something harder. They're honored. And it's kind of sweet. But my trainer, who was a big dude, he would spot the mirror, there's a mirror with all the seats and everybody's sitting in the mirror doing their, whatever. There'd be one chair right in the middle that was empty. And he'd hand me my dumbbells and he said, I'm standing back here. You walk up there and you take up space. You belong in that chair.
Oh my God, I love that.
Yeah, it was like the best thing. It was kind of like what a dad does when his child is first ready to take the training wheels off and shoves the bike, runs along with you, and then lets go. It was so empowering to me to just be told, I'll be back here, but you go up there. And I did. I sat down and like, all right, I'm here. I'm in front of the mirror and I'm sitting by all these huge men and nobody was mean. It looks scary, but it's not. And yeah, it was really fun.
Yeah.
I really appreciate him for teaching me to take up space.
That is an amazing lesson. And especially coming from a man to a woman to
Yes.
say no, you deserve to take up space. We know we do. We don't need a man's opinion on that, but it's really helpful, especially in a male dominated space. When I started weightlifting at my college gym, I kind of just had to go for it. And I would bring my girlfriends along sometimes because I had a few girlfriends who were getting into weight training and be like, okay, we're going to go in the weight room together. And that was really helpful to start. And then eventually I just had to sack up and, go into a very male dominated area, but it can be really helpful to, be encouraged in that way by somebody who's part of that community. So
Yes.
You also brought up an amazing tip. I've never heard the tip about just go to the gym and walk on the treadmill while you scope everyone out. I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
Also, I work in the group fitness space, so I connect with a lot of people in group fitness. And I want to add to that because I think finding a good group fitness trainer can be tricky, and you need to be diligent in finding a gym that's actually going to teach you how to lift properly.
Yes.
And so to add to that, a lot of these group fitness spaces, they allow you to have a free day trial, at least a free day.
Yes.
Go into class and, pay attention to what the trainer is actually doing. The trainer should come up to you, especially if you're new to the gym, they should come up to you at least once to give you some kind of coaching cue. If they do not give you anything in your first class for you to walk away with, chances are they're probably not going to give you something in the consecutive days to follow.
Yeah.
And then furthermore, some of the tips that you mentioned on point, right? Like look for the trainer who is not on their phone, who is not just chit chatting with friends, who is genuinely there to work,
Mhm.
believe it or not.
Yeah,
And I think in group fitness, you want to look out for the trainer who's not just a cheerleader. So
right.
they're just there and they're like cheering you on. And that's
You
the
look
only,
so good.
oh, great job, go harder. Like, that is not really a good sign of a good trainer. That is a good sign of a great cheerleader.
Right, right.
Need somebody who's, somebody can be doing that, but they should also be giving active coaching cues.
Yes,
Something to look
yes.
for when you're looking in a group fitness space. Because quite frankly, for a lot of women, that's where they do feel comfortable
Yeah.
showing. It's not the gym. It's not on their own in the weight room.
Mhm,
It's usually some kind of group fitness space, but then
mhm.
we also have to make sure that we're finding a good trainer in the group fitness space as well, if that's where we're going.
That's really good. I had not thought about that. It's the same thing is true of group fitness because you can get lost if the class is too big, and the person has to be really good at spotting everybody, paying attention to each person, noticing strengths and weaknesses, and being encouraging, but also being very forthright in gently changing the body's position so that you can feel if your hips are uneven or if you're rounding your back or something that you're not supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
That's excellent. I think that it is tricky, and yet it's if you find a good trainer, you are golden. I mean, you have a clear path ahead. I've been fortunate. I had a few in the beginning, a few cheerleader types, but then as I got into the bodybuilding and more serious, I began to find or attract the right people for me. But it kind of it's evolving. It's something that evolves. And to be a good communicator afterwards, I think it's very good if you're in a group class to especially go up to the trainer afterwards and thank them for something specific. I like the way you fill in the blank. I appreciate that you noticed blank because that will also cue the trainer into what was noticed and felt. Sometimes we just train because we know what to do, but we don't know sometimes what really is impacting the person. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that final little tip of, hey, give your trainer a cue. They could
Yeah.
use it. Yeah.
Positive reinforcement works both ways.
It does. It does. It's really helpful. I always love when people come up to me and say like, "Hey, I love,
Yeah,
XYZ about this." It
yeah,
again, yeah, just the way you said it reinforces that for me
yeah,
to be like, "Okay, one, this person really likes that, so I should continue to do that for them." But
yeah,
two, other people would also probably appreciate it as well.
sure. Yeah.
Amazing tips today. I think this is so helpful. So take the opportunity to drop your YouTube channel as well as anywhere else people can connect with you.
Yes, I have an Aging Strong for Life is my YouTube channel. It just started a few months ago and it's taking off and it's all tips about healthy longevity, dealing with the mental game, the food game, how to shop, how to read labels, to actually being in the gym and things about that and just kind of all aspects. And it's exciting for me because it's growing. Also, I have a book that's a very quick read. It's like 100 pages. It's Elements of Aging Well, my journey so far. So it's my story, but it's also a book about what it's like to take care of yourself over the age of 50 and the things that come up for you that you wouldn't expect. I started out doing everybody said, "Oh, you should write a fitness book, Janet." Well, I thought, okay. And then I started, I thought, wait a minute, there are 10,000 books out there on how to exercise. I am not going to be the same old, same old. And then I thought, well, what is it that a woman who is 65 could have to say to other women? It's written for women. The advice works for men, but it's kind of, I'm looking at you ladies when I wrote the book, so what are the things that also come up that nobody talks about? One of them is how to establish clear boundaries. Because when you do something gnarly, like start lifting weights, believe it or not, you're going to get pushback. you're going to get somebody saying, oh, I don't know, you don't want to blah, blah. They'll say things because you're challenging they're looking at, you're their mirror, and they're like, I don't think I can do. So they're going to project that onto you. Have boundaries and learn how to kindly deflect those things, and hopefully keep your friendships, but maybe sometimes you can't. Also, how to form habits, because we're told that, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but you can, because brain health, brain health here. So it kind of dives into James Clear's Atomic Habits and how that idea applies in this space. And then also the idea about recognizing obstacles as an indicator that you are on the right path. There's a book by Ryan Holiday. It's right here. The obstacle is the way. The obstacle is the way. Meaning, if you don't have any obstacles in this new path you're taking, then that's a red flag. You should have obstacles. There should be things pushing back, logs in the road, because that's what the universe does. When you make a change, it's testing you. Do you really mean it? Are you sure you want to do this? This is the right way, but I don't know. Can you handle it? And so and the obstacles are making you stronger and actually preparing you for the next level. So it's about those kinds of things, as well as diet and exercise and, all of those other things. So it's not long. You can stick it in your handbag, and it's easy to carry. So I'll give a link for that.
Yeah, that'll be featured in the show notes. That sounds like a really cool book. I like your tidbits on things that are not usually talked about. So I think that's huge.
This is
link it in the bio. And other than that, thank you so much for coming on and sharing all of this.
Oh, thank you, Diana. It was a pleasure. It was fun. It was fun connecting with a fellow trainer. I'm sorry to your audience that we geeked out a little bit. Hopefully you can handle it, and you can take something away that is useful for you.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Anti-Macro Podcast. I hope you found today's insights valuable and actionable for your own wellness journey. Remember, true transformation comes from consistent, intentional steps forward. If you enjoyed today's episode and want to stay updated on all things health and fitness, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss a new episode. I release fresh content bi-weekly every Wednesday to keep you inspired and informed. And hey, if you loved what you heard, I'd be thrilled if you could take a moment to share this podcast with a friend or family member who might benefit from it. By sharing it with others, you're helping them on their wellness journey too. Keep striving for progress, not perfection, and I'll catch you next time.